Our next speaker today is Sheriff Richard Mack. Hold on a second. I'll pull it off again, I'm sorry. Our next speaker today is going to be Sheriff Richard Mack. Sheriff Mack led a Supreme Court victory for state sovereignty. He's an author of several books on freedom, government, and gun control. He's a consultant on constitutional issues, a crusader for liberty. He's best known for challenging the Brady Bill. Mack has written 6 books and appeared in over 120 Tea Party rallies nationwide. He has stood against the incursions of the federal government and has fought for civil rights from Hawaii to Bangor, Maine. He's the founder and president of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association and is on the Oath Keepers Board of Directors. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome up Sheriff Richard Mack.
Really a great reception, and thank you. Now, is this the chairman of the Republican Party? You are, right? You're for Pinal County, right? Well, while we were eating here, I thought he exemplified some real leadership. He who is greatest among you is your servant. And that's what he was doing. He was making sure he was serving people the whole time. He even brought us cookies. And so, what a great leader. That really is a great leader. Thank you. It's great to be here. I just got back. I just got in this morning, about 11 o'clock from Las Vegas. I spoke there last night. And then the day before that, I spoke in Jackson, Tennessee. And so I've had kind of a long leg this week, and I'm really grateful to be back in Arizona. Ray, take on me. Okay? I'm 5th generation Arizona. Okay? He's 3, I'm 5th. My great-grandmother came here with her parents back in the late 1880s. She was one of the first Mormon pioneers to settle the Gila Valley. And my dad served there in the FBI for about 25 years. And that's where I went to high school. I went to Safford High School and went to Eastern Arizona College. Never went to U of A or ASU. So if you're Eastern Arizona big fans, great. You know, I'm kind of a weird Arizonan. I always cheer for either U of A or Arizona, who has the best chance to go to a good bowl. And basketball right now, I'm mostly a U of A fan right now, because ASU is not doing that hard. But whoever's doing the best, that's who I cheer for. I've been to both campuses. I was actually recruited for basketball at U of A by boy, this really dates me. Bruce Larson. He was the coach at the time. Yeah, she's laughing. Yeah. I love Arizona, and I travel all over the country, and I am so proud when I go places, especially when people ask about the Second Amendment. And Arizona is one of the 4, maybe now 5 states that has constitutional carry. And I always ask the other states, if you don't have constitutional carry, then what do you have? You have unconstitutional carry. Why are we doing that? Texas does not have constitutional carry. Montana does not have constitutional carry. Why do we continue to support this philosophy that it's okay to have some gun control? Yeah, a little bit of gun control here and there. Oh, and I've even heard some Republicans say, yeah, why do you need an assault rifle? Do you want me to give you the answer, the quick answer? It's none of your damn business why I have an assault rifle. It happens to be my wife's choice of guns, and I'm not going to tell her no, and neither are you. And did you see, now I've got to do something here. I've got to turn my phone down. Anybody else want to do that with me here? Sorry.
You never know who's listening.
Yeah, I know. So, also, otra cosa. Dile a Jorge Ramos que venga. I totally tell Jorge Ramos to come to me. I'll interview with him anytime. So, but did you see in Detroit, where they love gun control, the lady who just got a present from her husband about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it was an assault rifle. They didn't say what kind. Maybe it was an AK-47, I don't know. But I don't like to call any of them assault rifles. That's kind of the Democrat. I thought he might be using it. But he gave her a rifle. And I guess it was maybe for her birthday or something. Anyway, it was a gift. And lo and behold, there's a video camera in their backyard, a security camera, that's videotaping 3 thugs kicking in her back door. And so she goes and grabs the assault rifle, the rifle, and warns the thugs that she has a gun. And they said, no, you don't. They don't think people in Detroit have guns. Because it's all run by Democrats. And, you know, you have to be so careful with that. And so she convinced him. She pulled off a few rounds. And these guys start tripping over each other, trying to run and get out of there because, sure enough, she let them know she wasn't lying. She had a gun. She wasn't kidding. And they didn't believe her until she fired off a few rounds. And lucky for them, she missed. But unlucky for them, they were all 3 arrested. And lo and behold, the chief of police for Detroit, Chief Craig, went to the press about this and told everybody she did exactly what she was supposed to do. And he hopes that everybody else does the same. That anybody, any way, in any party in America wants to make easier targets for me and my family by telling me that we can't own certain guns or certain ammunition or certain magazines, you know, it's just plain and simply none of their business. And I wrote a book called The Magic of Gun Control. Now, you have to love that title because it's totally, people have asked me about the title who don't know me and say, you're for gun control? It's sarcastic. It's a satire, okay? It's a satirical title. Because if gun control were to ever provide any benefit to anyone, it would have to be magic, because it never has throughout world history. All gun control has ever done is promote genocides, enslaving the subjects, or making citizens and turning them into subjects. It is a way to destroy freedom, liberty, and American ideals. And that's why the Founding Fathers, see, gun control was nothing new. They had experienced it throughout the world, and America, gun control, will be against the law. And there's a chapter so titled in the book. Gun control in America is against the law. Period. End of story. It's not lawful. So now you know how many criminals we have going around this country pretending to be leaders when they say that we're going to promote more gun control. And we could go on for that every day, but the program said that I'm a gun rights activist. That's that's a little bit true, but when I sued the Clinton administration, I did it on the 10th Amendment. So I got to think like I'm a 10th Amendment state sovereignty specialist. And then I look at the First Amendment and I say, well, I really believe in freedom of religion. And I really believe in the right to peaceably assemble. And I really believe in freedom of the press and freedom of speech and the right to file grievances against government. And so I guess I'm a First Amendment specialist. And those are the 5 principles in the First Amendment. And then right after that, to guarantee all those 5 principles, we have the Second Amendment. And you know that the Second Amendment was actually, do we even know what the Bill of Rights was for? Why did the Founding Fathers, after they got together and had this most miraculous convention of states, where they formulated a constitution, which absolutely miraculous constitution, did they come back 2 years later and say, the Constitution didn't go far enough? We made a mistake. So what did they come up with? Why did they come up with a Bill of Rights? What was it for? Well, many of the Founding Fathers, including Patrick Henry, some of these right-wing radicals, said, we must have a Declaration of Rights that governments 200 years from now or 15 years from now can never mistake what we mean about these rights. These unalienable, did you know it's not unalienable? It's these unalienable rights. In other words, you can't lien them. Government cannot lien these rights. They can't touch them. And so they said, we'll have a Declaration of Rights that throughout all generations of American leadership, they will not make a mistake as to what we mean here. These rights are untouchable by government. In fact, those of you who are, again, dated a little bit, my age and maybe a little more, you remember the television series Untouchables? The Untouchables starred Elliot Ness and all that. You know, that's what the Bill of Rights was intended to be. The untouchables by government. They cannot touch them. And this would be what they would be saying if they were honest and true to American ideals and to our Constitution. They would say, you know what? I would love to see fewer guns in America. I don't like guns personally, but I cannot stand with you and support gun control laws, because when I took this job, I swore an oath in God's name that I would uphold, defend, and protect and preserve the U.S. Constitution. And I know what the Second Amendment is. I know what the Second Amendment means. And I know it's untouchable. And I promised that I would go by that. My personal feelings notwithstanding. That's what that would look like. Have you heard any of that? From any of them? From any party? From anybody in government? Oh, yeah, we're just going to protect you. Yeah, so we're just going to make all these gun control laws. Well, when I was sheriff in Grant County, I went to a meeting in Phoenix, and it was for the Sheriff's Association. And there's only 12 there at the time. Very rarely did we get all 15 sheriffs at a meeting ever that I went to in the 8 years that I was sheriff. But at this particular meeting, and I have to tell you, I'm really happy to be here and celebrating this with you, because yesterday, February 28th, was the 20-year anniversary of the lawsuit that I filed. In February 28, 1994, this small town sheriff started this movement. I was all by myself. I was the only sheriff in America to do it. I sued the federal government. I filed in federal district court in Tucson, Arizona, in the courtroom of one Judge John M. Roll. Have you ever heard of him? He was murdered during the assassination attempt on Congresswoman Giffords. He was the second one to be killed. On the anniversary of that date, they said Congresswoman Giffords was wounded and 6 others killed. It was a federal district judge who has stood for American values, who stood up to his boss and said, you exceeded your authority. I didn't even like the idea of suing and going to federal court, because I'm going into a courtroom where judges are picked by the people and paid by the people I'm suing. And so the deck was stacked against us big time. But I was the first sheriff in American history to file a lawsuit against the federal government, take it all the way to the United States Supreme Court, and win. Now what you have here, this is not a campaign literature thing, okay? You need to hold on to this thing, because what I have gifted you, what my wife passed around to you, is a gift that I'm giving you that costs $400,000. I'm not kidding. What do you think it costs to go all the way to the United States Supreme Court? This is a highlighted version of the case. And we're gonna just refer to a couple of things in here, because I want you to know that this sign right here, does the Republican Party really mean it? Then I'm with you all the way. If we're talking about individual rights and freedoms, then I'm proud to be a Republican. That's where we should be the most united, is on the Constitution that protects these God-given rights that America was founded upon. And if we're doing that, I'm with you all the way. And I've been over to Tucson and campaigned with Gabby. What a great lady. An amazing leader. Putting herself on the line for freedom. I'm thrilled with some of the Republicans here in Arizona. And I'm disappointed in some others. And where we should be the most united is that we're going to be the party standing for freedom and principles. It used to be that we were called the party of principle. And I think that was kind of more back in the Reagan days. But I'll tell you what, Reagan said something that I think that we should be carrying around as a mantra, probably several things, but this one where government isn't the solution to the problem, government is the problem.
Right.
I think we've seen that from far too many Republicans, but definitely from the Democrats. And are we standing against that? Or are we trying to chase after the socialists and we become a little bit socialistic ourselves as we do that? We don't need to chase after them. We can keep the standards and we can set the standards and we can maintain our principles. Let them come to us. Let them compromise finally. We're the ones that continue to compromise, and we have. Look how solid we used to be on abortion, and we're not anymore. Look how solid we used to be on the Second Amendment, and we're not anymore. And these are principles of freedom because the Founding Fathers said there's going to be at least 10 rules that they will never be able to violate. And there's one that they use very strong language that this particular right, this God-given right as expressed in the Second Amendment, this one we're going to say shall not be infringed. A lot of good that did. It's the most infringed of all of them. The most infringed of all of them. Lawlessness from our own politicians and leaders. And so when I decided to sue the Clinton administration, it was because, I sued the Clinton administration, and I lived to tell about it. And speaking of that, is Sheriff Arpaio in the audience? Oh,
No.
good, he's not here. I can talk about him then. Sheriff Arpaio is a friend of mine, and he, the good reverend over here was at the Sheriff Arpaio roast, and my wife and I went to it too. We had kind of a fun time. Some of these guys were afraid to roast him. And I told him afterwards, I said, you should have got me. I'm not afraid of you. I would have roasted the heck out of you. You know, and so every time I share the stage with Joe, I always tell it that, you know what, come on, Joe. I'm tired of you telling everybody in Arizona and across the country that you're the toughest sheriff in America. And he goes, oh, I suppose you think it was you. I said, it's elementary. Of course it was me. Joe, you took on the street gangs, the prostitutes, and the drug dealers. I took on the Clintons. So, yeah. In fact, I want you to see how powerful this decision was. Now, when the year I filed, it got so much press, we couldn't even handle it all at our small little sheriff's office in Grand County. We had to set up some new phones because I never thought this, I never anticipated this was going to be a big story. And after it went out over the AP wire, when I announced that I was going to do this, we took over 300 calls from all over the country and all over the world, Canada, Britain, Australia, and we got 300 calls. Well, that just tied up our phones. We had to set up a new phone, and we actually hired somebody part-time just to take that phone. And then when we won, 3.5 years later, nothing. When we filed, we got thousands of calls. When we won, it was shut down. In fact, Sheriff Prince, who was from Montana, and I ended up at the Supreme Court together. And when we won, Meet the Press asked us to be on the next Sunday after the decision came out. And then just a day before, they called and canceled us. I mean, we already had the plane tickets and everything, they paid for them, but they canceled them, just lost the tickets. And they didn't want us. They didn't want to talk about what this really did. So I want to now with you talk about what this really did, okay? Turn to page 4, I think it is. Maybe it's 5. No, it's 5. I'm sorry. Turn to page 5. So like we're having Sunday school lesson. Look at there where it says New York versus United States, and it's in bold black. We have held, however, that state legislatures are not subject to federal direction. Don't you wish your state legislature knew that? We are not subject to federal direction. Does that mean that county commissions and city councils are? Of course not. We're political subdivisions of the state. You would be saying hardly nothing of significance to say that the state isn't subject to federal direction, but the cities and counties are. How about school boards? Are they subject to federal direction? They're not. But when we take all their money and we want more money from them, then we'll sit there and go, oh yes, we'll do what you say. Oh, we'll do what you say. Please continue to grant us the money, the 5% of the $100 that we send them. For every $100 we send Washington, D.C. for education dollars, they send back about 5.50 cents. And we grovel to get it. And we even call it, what do we call it? Free money. And sheriffs have started to take some of the money. And chiefs of police. And they're funding a lot of agencies of law enforcement across the country. Do you know that we should have never heard of Rosa Parks? We shouldn't have. We should have heard of the two cops that did not arrest her, but that got on the bus, sat down next to her, shook her hand, and then escorted her home safely. Instead, these two idiots arrest her and take her to jail and book her into jail. They fingerprint her, they photograph her, and book her into a jail cell. Can you imagine what her booking sheet said? Refused to give her seat back then. So of course she's in jail. Why would we do that? Because it was the law. A constitutional sheriff, a constitutional peace officer would know the difference between enforcing stupid laws and adhering to the principles that Abe Lincoln said that 7 years ago our forefathers brought forth on this continent a new nation based on the notion that all men are created equal. That we know and understand constitutional principles, that we know and understand the principles of equality, and that it applies to everybody, and that the stupid Supreme Court actually supported segregation, calling it the separate but equal doctrine. And we have this kind of insanity going on, and cops enforcing it, instead of standing and stopping it. And these same officers, constitutional officers today, would do the same for the Amish farmer who's being attacked because he doesn't pasteurize his milk. Do you know that we've actually sent SWAT teams onto the farms of Amish farmers in this country because they don't pasteurize their milk? That's how stupid we've gotten, future constable. That's how stupid we've gotten in this country. SWAT teams in front of all these kids, and they destroy hundreds of dollars worth of very good, wholesome, raw milk and cheese and butter, and they destroy it because he just didn't have the right permit, or he didn't pasteurize his milk. And so now I've gotten to know a lot of Amish farmers all across the country. One, Vernon Hirschberger from Wisconsin, asked me to come and drink raw milk with him on the state capitol steps in Madison. It just seemed to be the Sheriff Mack thing to do, so I did. And now I've done it. I've done it in California and Nevada and Utah, and I don't think I've done it in Arizona yet. Anybody have any raw milk? And I've gone all these places drinking raw milk with these Amish farmers. And in fact, I spoke at the Kentucky Sheriff's Association banquet 2 or 3 years ago. And I drank raw milk in front of every one of them. 116 sheriffs. I don't know why they have so many counties out there in the Midwest. But anyway, I keep telling them, I said, Arizona only has 15 and we're the 6th largest state. But 116 sheriffs are there. The Louisville sheriff sitting right next to me, and it's his jurisdiction. That's where we're having the banquet. And I'm drinking. And I tell you what, I got a little nervous. I thought maybe one of these guys would... I feel like I'm drinking cocaine or something in front of this guy. I'm drinking raw milk. And I told them, I'm drinking raw milk. It's against the law you want. And thank goodness they did. They let me drink the raw milk. And you know the funny thing about it? I hate milk. But you know what? To me, it was freedom milk. And maybe it was psychosomatic. But my kids have never seen me drink a glass of milk. And they've seen the picture from Madison, Wisconsin. It's on my website where I did it. They couldn't believe it. It actually tastes better than store-bought milk to me. But the point is this. If you were called back into time to December 1st, 1955, Montgomery, Alabama, would you have arrested Rosa Parks? Would you have enforced the law? Or would you have made sure she got home and then give her and her family extra patrol and make sure that their gun is loaded and ready to go in case they need it, in case they need to defend themselves against hooded knights? Come on. Which one are you going to do, cop? You going to enforce the law, sheriff? You going to enforce the law? Or are you going to stand for freedom? That's what I ask in every one of my speeches across the country to the sheriffs and cops that I meet with. If you're given the opportunity, will you stand for liberty? We all have it. We all have that chance. Now we even have sheriffs in New York standing against Governor Cuomo and his SAFE Act that is out of control. And in fact, some of those sheriffs and other cops too in New York have said they will not enforce it. They will actually not enforce it. Isn't that the bottom line? These tyrants will always need somebody in uniform to support what they're doing. And if you tell them no, is that lawlessness or is that America? That's America. In fact, it could even be a little bit Arizona. There's just some things we're not going to do here in Arizona. That's why we have constitutional carry. We leave people alone. Sometimes that's a little messy, I admit it. That's what liberty is. It's not a utopia. It's freedom and liberty, and that means that we're going to have to accept some responsibility for our own actions. Oh, man. So, let's go back to this. Let's see what else it said. Page 6. Right across the street from the one we just read. Again, in bold. The federal government, we held, may not compel the states to enact or administer a federal regulatory program. What does that do to Obamacare? Does the state of Arizona have to take Obamacare and do it? And initiate it? No. Do anything with it? No. Absolutely not. Did Justice Roberts make us in any way go along? No, quite the opposite. As a matter of fact, is there something else that Justice Roberts can't do? Can he make a law a tax? No. Absolutely not. He cannot. And he did not. What he should have said, this has got to get referred back to Congress because that's the only place you can make a law a tax. He did not do it. So, I know time is short, and I really love being here, and I thank you so much for having me here. But I want to give you one final quote from this decision, and maybe say one thing to give a shout out to somebody who changed my life, another Arizonan, who changed my life forever, and that was Judge Roll. You see, we did a little bit of a sneaky thing when we filed the lawsuit. My lawyer, Dave Hardy in Tucson, went in the morning to file the Mack versus U.S. case. It was the wrong judge. He was a liberal judge. He knew the judges. There was only 4 at the time. And he says, you know what? He told the clerk, I forgot some paperwork. I'll be right back. He came back in the afternoon, and we got to run in the morning. Judge Roll was up at that time, Assistant Judge Roll. We got Judge Roll, and thank goodness we did. And Judge Roll saved me. Every time the Clinton administration tried to remove me for standing or any of the other shenanigans they played, Judge Roll sided with me. In fact, this was the first time in history that a unfunded mandate carried with it no money, of course. It was an unfunded mandate. But a threat of arrest if we failed to comply. They threatened to arrest us. And we actually got an injunction against the Clinton administration for being able to arrest me while we were in court. Do you realize what that means? I had an order of protection from the Clinton administration. And if you look at all the people that ever sued Bill Clinton, I was the only one to do so on a non-sexual matter. Serious, true story. So anyway, the Judge Roll, in his decision, he pointed his finger at Congress and said, Congress exceeded its authority in promulgating the Brady Bill. and thereby impermissibly. It's not going to happen. We have to do it, Arizona. Pinal County has to do it. We must do more in this regard of protecting individual rights. Even if it means our jobs, even if it means our next election, we stand for freedom in Arizona. We're not here to promote elections. We're here to promote freedom and liberty. Judge Roll was fantastic. I love the man. I dedicated a chapter to him in my book, The Magic of Gun Control. And I'll leave you with this thought because it's an amazing thing. Justice Scalia wrote this decision. 6 other sheriffs joined this lawsuit. There was a total of 7. 7 out of 3,086 sheriffs. 7 did this lawsuit, told the federal government to back off. And only 1 from Texas, Sheriff Coop from Texas, was the only one of the 254 sheriffs there. He was the only one who lost at the district court. All the rest of us won. How do you lose a states' rights, gun rights case in Texas? Must have been the judge that moved in from Chicago or something. Anyway, Judge Roll was so principled in his decision, so amazing, and so saving of my life, perhaps. But Justice Scalia, in this 5-4 split decision, he wrote the decision for the majority. He said this, quote, "But the Constitution protects us from our own best intentions." Do you understand what that means? Good intentions does not equate to constitutionality. But the Constitution protects us from our own best intentions. That's why I'm proud to be here in Arizona. I'm proud to be with you. And I will stand with any of you as we stand for God-given liberty here in Arizona. Thank you so much for having me.